Hi, I'm Dr. Walter Matwaychuk, and I'd like to talk to you about the role of homework or between session activity in rational emotive behavior therapy. Rational emotive behavior therapy is not a vent, see you next time therapy. What we encourage you to do is to participate in therapy in an active sort of way. It is a psychoeducational approach. So the first sort of work that needs to be done between sessions is to take the time to go over and absorb and learn some of the ideas that are the core ideas of REBT. To that end, I recommend that you read the REBT Pocket Companion for Clients, second edition, which is a very handy resource that myself and my good friend and colleague, Dr. Wendy Dryden, put together in order to help people maximize the impact of REBT therapy. It's my firm belief that you first have to understand the core ideas of REBT before you can effectively use them. So I think of the initial stage of psychotherapy with me is the identification of key problems, learning some of the core ideas of REBT, which I will teach you during the sessions, but having the Pocket Companion to help you refresh your memory of these core concepts is a good thing to have and do between sessions. However, this initial stage of learning some of these core ideas is a very brief one insofar as what we would like for you to do is begin to, between sessions, actually put these ideas into practice, the implementation of these ideas. So, for example, one of the things that we teach people are certain ideas, and we will want you to rehearse these ideas between sessions. You might write them on index cards, and in the morning while you're brushing your teeth or in the evening at the end of the day, review those index cards and say certain ideas to yourself. For example, I anger myself. When people misbehave, I disturb myself. Or when life gets rough, I feel bad and depress myself. I feel self-pitying and depress myself. Or when there's uncertainty, I make myself anxious. And I could choose to stop doing this. I could learn how to tolerate other people's misbehavior and assert myself with them. I can learn how to accept that life is going to be hard and remind myself I can tolerate it, and thereby I don't have to depress myself when I think about my burdens. And I can also come to accept that we live in a world of probability, and I don't have to be anxious while I'm taking calculated risks, and I may face uncertainty in the future. So these ideas we would put on index cards. I would instruct you during the session and tailor them for you, and then help you do what I call cognitive homework, whereby you would regularly say these to yourself once or twice, or you may take the index cards and place them on the bottom of your computer screen where you will look at them occasionally and remind yourself that you can accept yourself, warts and all, or that you can bear discomfort. So cognitive rehearsal, rehearsing rational ideas, is an important part of REBT homework. Homework doesn't have to take a long time. I often ask people to give me 20 minutes, 15 minutes once a day, if that. For the reading part of REBT, 15, 20 minutes is something that I would ask people to try to carve out of their busy lives every other day. But the cognitive homework you can do virtually every day, and that doesn't take very long at all. You could say these coping self-statements while you're brushing your teeth, or at the end of the day, you could reflect upon whether or not you handled things in a healthy way and recommit to handling better the next day. Another type of homework you might learn to do, and preferably do, would be to learn to take out a piece of paper when you're upset and write the letters A, B, C, and then begin to identify the adversity, the basic attitudes that produce unhealthy, negative emotional consequences and unhealthy behavioral consequences, and then create questions that you might ask and dispute your rigid and extreme attitudes that are having these unhealthy consequences. So we ask people to sometimes put pen to paper and reflect upon how they're disturbing themselves. And then they could bring this piece of paper into therapy and use it as a starting point for a therapy session. Again, homework doesn't have to be done perfectly well. It doesn't have to take hours. We're not trying to make you think that we're going to burden you in a unrealistic way between sessions. But what we know from the research is that people who use these ideas between sessions, attempt to use them, even if they use them imperfectly, are going to get far more therapeutic relief and grow as people than those people who just come to sessions and expect all their learning to take place during their time spent with me. I would also say that there are certain behavioral assignments that you're going to want to engage in between sessions. For example, we're going to, during sessions, encourage you to think differently so you can assert yourself and advocate for yourself. And then, of course, the natural homework that would follow from this would be that between sessions, when there's an opportunity to pipe up and advocate for yourself, that you would risk rejection or risk an irksome response from another person and assert yourself with them and say, no, thank you, I don't really want to do that. Or, please, the line starts here. There's a line here. Please fall into line. So we would encourage people to begin to assert themselves, not angrily, not aggressively, but we would encourage people to do things behaviorally that would be different and consistent with their therapeutic goals. This would be an example of a behavioral homework assignment I might give you. If you're a person who's fearful or shameful, we might give you homework assignments that would help you get out of your comfort zone and challenge your tendency to avoid discomfort and shame and anxiety and to risk rejection or to do something which you might think is embarrassing or shameful, but is consistent with the type of behavior that you would like to be able to do in the future. And that's why you're in therapy. So we call these things shame attacks. And traditionally, some of them have been silly exercises done in public. But I think some of the best shame attacks are the practical ones where, for example, if you you go into a restaurant and you don't like the table that you're seated at, you then gently protest and ask to be seated at a better table. Or if you're in a restaurant and you don't get good service, that you do not give the customary amount of tip and actually tie tip to good performance. And if the waiter doesn't like it, so be it. So what I think is we're trying to get people out of their comfort zone, and they're going to do things that are consistent with their therapeutic goal. And the only way to do that is not just to talk about these behaviors in therapy sessions and not to look at the attitudes that hold a person back and not to only create new healthy attitudes like this is uncomfortable for me to do to initiate this behavior. It's not unbearable and it's worth doing. Yeah, you could say that, but then we're going to want you to kind of act upon that attitude and implement a behavioral change, or at least attempt to. And so psychotherapy's homework, or the REBT homework, is not just going to be reading a book for 20 minutes every other day. It's also going to be trying to implement these ideas behaviorally. That's the most important part of treatment, where we really want to see behavioral change and emotional change. And very often, emotional change follows from behavioral change, not the other way around. We might think differently and then act differently and then ultimately feel differently. It's a little bit counterintuitive, but that's how it sometimes goes. On the other hand, sometimes we think differently, feel differently, and then begin to act differently. So it can go either way. But the point being is we're going to encourage you to be aware of the types of behaviors that would indicate therapeutic progress, and then to intentionally attempt to implement those behaviors. That might mean being patient when you otherwise might get angry, and thinking to yourself differently, intentionally differently when you would normally get angry, and then instead of being aggressive and angry, being assertive. So REBT is an action-oriented therapy, and we want to help you put these new behaviors into your life and act differently. Now, the homework assignments we give you will be challenging, but not overwhelming. So the idea is that you don't have to fear if you are unable to do them. Perhaps the homework assignment was construed and poorly construed, and we need to tweak it so that it's more actionable for you. But the point being is we're going to try to get you to change how you think, change how you feel, change how you behave. And you're not going to just do this in a passive way by reading a book or writing on paper, which all those things are important. But in the end, we're going to try to get you to behave differently and practice behaving differently. And you may rehearse that with me in sessions, but ultimately, we're going to try to get you to do that imperfectly in your environment. And then I think the final phase of therapy is what I call the maintenance homework assignments. These are the homework assignments that people do to maintain treatment gains. Now, generally speaking, they're very much like the ones you did earlier in therapy. The therapy's activities that worked to help you achieve your therapeutic gains are the ones you're going to want to maintain, because REBT makes the case that humans are prone to backsliding, and then you will go back to your old ways of thought, feeling, and behavior unless you continue to identify attitudes that hold you back, or the attitudes that you use to disturb yourself. Unless you continue to challenge them and rehearse healthy attitudes, unless you remain aware of your behavior, and when you spot backsliding, go and work hard to not have that happen. Now, maintenance can also mean looking at some of the audios and videos that are found on my website. They're there because I want you to understand REBT and remember it. And so I'm trying to make resources available to you that you can use to understand REBT and maintain your treatment gain. And you have to maintain a good understanding of the ideas. And sometimes we need a refresher. And finally, I think attending my weekly Saturday Rational Emotive Behavioral Conversation Hour is a great way to both learn the ideas and then implement them, because you see during these sessions with other people struggling to learn REBT ideas how they can be applied to a wide variety of problems. And so you get more bang for your buck, if you will, by not only working with me, but observing these sessions and seeing the utility of REBT. It also enables you to step back, and since you're not the participant, to observe, and sometimes people learn a little bit better that way. And finally, at the end of these conversation hours that are held every Saturday at 9 a.m. Eastern, you can ask questions so that you can say, well, Dr. Matwichuk, why did you tell him to think this way when this might have made more sense? And so in the end, what I'm trying to do is help you learn these ideas easily or as efficiently as possible through written material, audio material, video material, through the observation of the conversation hour, and then also through some writing, if you will, and then in the end, through action, behavioral implementation. Now, not everybody will do this, and in my view, that's unfortunate, but not the end of the world. I will encourage them to take small steps to try to implement these things into their life. And so at the end of the day, I think people are responsible for their behavior and their effort in therapy. I will try to fan the flames of motivation to help them test new ideas and test new behaviors. But if people don't want to do homework, that's okay with me. I would just encourage them to do some homework, even if they lead very busy lives, because we know that that's how you change and that's how you maximize your investment in psychotherapy. I see the time and energy and money that you spend with me as an investment, and I want you to get the best return on investment that you possibly can.